Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting our invite to join us. So, you're a field recordist, sound editor, and owner at Ebbtide Sound, and also an acoustic researcher. Your area of expertise is sound library production, and so I want to really hear your experiences in all those areas. And I want to ask how you started field recording in the first place. So I'll just repeat that question because it was, what inspired to begin field recording in the first place. So we'll take it from there.
Sure. It's really mostly just because I love being in nature and observing what's happening around me. And so I'd always loved watching and listening to birds and animals and wind and water. And I grew up in a suburban area. So when I lived out in this wilderness area in Washington State, I really loved being immersed in nature, and I worked outside. And I met a field recordist who lived in the neighborhood. So I ended up learning about, there's this, you can actually work in recording natural sounds, which was something I'd never thought of before. So I just became curious about that, and he needed somebody to review his library. So I started working mostly just to review the sounds he had recorded, and got really interested in it. Just as like a portrait of nature, I think is a really how I see it, I guess. And I also noticed that community was being pretty heavily impacted by this Navy Growler jet training. So there were these super loud jets that started flying over the area, which previously had been very free from noise pollution. And so I got kind of curious about how you can use acoustic tools to document that form of pollution, which has a huge impact on the people living there. And then I think it also impacts wildlife, though I'm not sure about studies of that particular area, but we know it impacts whales. So that was another part of it for me. It was another way to document the ways we were sort of destroying nature, and how humans kind of also can harm each other through different sources of pollution, which I'd been curious about as a kid, growing up near the ocean with water pollution. So.
Great. And being a geologist by study, how does that change your field recording experience?
Yeah, I became pretty passionate about geology at a young age, and it was also related to the study of soil and water contaminants. So I was pretty interested in learning the science behind those forms of pollution, and geology was a really interesting way for me to study that. And that actually ended up leading me to agriculture. And so I worked in agriculture for a long time. And that to me is this very hands-on experience with earth and water and plants, which I think does definitely translate to the field recording experience, because every day you're watching the weather and observing what's happening around you and paying attention to all the natural forces at work, which is kind of, for me, I think the part that I love the most about field recording, that sort of core experience of being immersed in natural forces.
Yeah. And you travel a lot for field recording, and I wonder how you choose your locations. Is it time of the year? Is it, your project requirements, or can you actually choose the locations yourself?
It's kind of all of those things. Like, some of it's just opportunistic. Like, if someone invites me to visit Istanbul, I'm obviously I will take opportunities. Yeah. And so it's kind of, I think part of it is community and opportunities to connect with people. So if somebody's like, oh, I'm going to be recording in this area, do you want to come work with me? Or if I have a friend or family in some area and want to visit, then I'll try to record. But for work, it's usually subject-based. So somebody wants rain. So I think about, okay, what are my best odds of getting the kind of rain that they want? And then from there, I look at weather, time of year, and the locations sort of sort themselves out like that. And then proximity to noise sources is a huge part of it too. Like, where can I go that I'm the best distance from air traffic and roads and trains, and any kind of industrial processing. And so that's probably, those things all kind of triangulate into like how I pick a spot.
Yeah. And where do you think it was the most interesting location for you?
Every time I go out, I think it's the most interesting location. So, there's always something at each location that's something I've never experienced before. And I love that. I think for me, though, Borneo is a place that I am really looking forward to going back to. And the experience there was pretty unique because I worked with a team of researchers studying bird populations. So I was with a group of people who were super knowledgeable about the ecology, and I loved being part of that group and learning from them what they see when they look at the forest and birds. And so doing recordings there for research was really gratifying because it was part of this project to study how birds live in different environments. So that was my favorite place to record so far, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And when was that? A few years ago?
Yeah, that was in 2019 in Sarawak, Borneo.
Yeah, beautiful place. Never been, but I want to.
Have you been to that kind of forest before? Like
In Asia, right? Yes, and in Brazil partly. But at that time, I wasn't doing field recording, so my field recording experience is limited to Turkey, I guess. However, we still have some of the untouched places in this country, so you can actually have a lot of, biodiversity here. You have the mountains, you have the sea, you have the snow, and forests, especially on the north of Turkey. Black Sea forests are very important ecologically as well. So that's on my list. Also, we talked about it before. In Istanbul, on the west side of it, there's a channel project just cutting from the Black Sea to the Marmara Sea, the inward sea, going to the Aegean. So there's a construction project there. Unfortunately, that's gonna ruin what we call the North Forests of Istanbul. So the idea is, and we would love to have you join us then, to go actually record those places before all this channel project happens and after it happens. So we'll see the difference, and we'll actually make it an archive for the future. And it's totally untouched at the moment. It's a great place to record as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it may be transformed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should come over very quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said that's 2019, the Borneo part. And I think after that you went to Costa Rica and recently to Ecuador. And can you tell me about those two experiences? I just love the recordings from Costa Rica,
Oh, thanks.
The hummingbirds, the frogs are all from there?
The hummingbirds, and I do have frog recordings from Costa Rica, but you may have heard some from Anza Borrego Desert in California.
All right.
And then there's some from Sierra Foothills area in California. But there are definitely tons of frogs in Costa Rica. It was really fun to hear them. We went out on a night hike too with a guide, and he was able to, he knows where to find different species. So we got to see glass frogs, which are amazing. They have kind of see-through torsos, and they're really prevalent in the recordings. So that trip was started out as a vacation, and then I had some interest in recordings for a client, and so it turned into like half vacation, half work. So we were at the beach for a week, and then up in the cloud forest for a week. And the forest there, it was fairly cool and just raining the whole time, and beautiful high canopy and deep river ravines and huge waterfalls. So it's just a really stunning place to spend time. And then amazing for rain recording because it was just always dripping or raining. So the sounds of the drips through the high canopy down, or like on lower levels, like on all the different plants, the broad leaves and the small leaves, was pretty special to hear. So
yeah. Lovely. In your recordings, I really love the water sounds, all kinds of water. The waves, for example, the Ebbtide, like the name of your company.
Yeah.
I just love how you can actually hear every little stone during the Ebbtide, and also the tropical forest recordings. It's so detailed, and it actually shows that you just love being there. The amount of detail and clarity of sound is amazing.
Thanks.
But then some people find water and especially rain recording difficult, so they tend to avoid that because there is the physical difficulty, the challenges, and protecting the equipment and also getting the right sound is like an art. So may I ask how you do your rain recordings specifically?
Sure. Yeah, it is definitely, it's a challenge to keep the equipment protected, like you said, for sure. I'm sure you've experienced that too. Just there's one thing to cover the mics, but then also every time you have to open your bag, you're letting in water and humidity. And I think maybe part of it is just accepting that you're gambling the whole time, like accepting, okay, I'm doing this and I understand that there could be consequences for this and I'm okay with that. And also I have insurance. So hopefully, like if something gets really damaged, I have some coverage. But I think I like gambling a little bit, and it reminds me of just being in the ocean in general. You're just sort of accepting what the elements are bringing to you and adapting to that. And so I always just have lots of extra shit with me, like clips and cord, and I sometimes use things like umbrellas, and I just try to place it so that the sound isn't close to the mics, or I'll hang different materials or like natural materials. I don't like to use natural materials in some places because the ecology is sensitive, so I don't want to like pick anything or touch the plants. But I'll try to use like something that hangs over the equipment so that it keeps the rain from hitting directly on the mic, or I put the microphones underneath something. So I'm always like, I go and scout and look for places where I could potentially stash the mics so that they're protected from rain. And then for myself, I just try to always have, extra socks or whatever, and you just get wet. And then, if you're lucky, we're working in a place where you're able to dry off in between. But sometimes it's just kind of, it's like backpacking or something. You're just always going to be exposed to the elements somewhat. And I don't mind that. I think I've also been lucky to be able to do it. So.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about not using the leaves or stuff like the acoustic sensitivity. I think that's what some of the field recorders do a lot to get a more natural sound. They put leaves and just gather natural stuff to cover the mics to get a more organic sound. But it's little light in my focus on this area, in my look in this area. That's what we were also trying to do so far. But yeah, maybe it's better to use an umbrella instead.
I think it kind of depends. Like in Ecuador, we worked with Kofan community, who were the guides and hosts for our trip. And so in that situation, they made decisions about what was okay to use as a rain shield for our microphones, and they built these amazing structures with palm fronds. And so I felt comfortable trusting, the people who are basically the ones responsible for that area and taking care of the park there, and who are guiding us. Like, they were the ones deciding what was okay to use in that way. And so that I felt comfortable with that. And then in places where it's not as sensitive, which I guess would be my interpretation. So maybe I'm biased, then I'll be more comfortable using like fern pieces that are on the forest floor or something, and I'll hang them over. But in a place where, like in Costa Rica also, you don't want to just touch anything necessarily, because there might be something living on the other side of it, or so I try to think about that stuff, or something very poisonous that you might touch. But so I don't think it's necessarily a universal rule I think that can be a really great way to protect the mics and have that natural sound. But I just think about like where I am and how the material I'm touching affects the rest of the ecology, I guess. But
yeah. And talking about mics, what is your choice of equipment when you're recording? Do you have specific different sets for different kinds of recording, or do you have like absolute favorites all the time?
Kind of both. Like, I have stuff that I like for ambiences more. I have a double mid-side system with Sennheiser MKH series mics, and I like the MKH mics because for me it's the right price point and durability, and the quality is really good. The self noise is low, so for those microphones I'm confident having them out in high humidity conditions, and I'm not worried that they'll have problems. And also I've listened to a lot of recordings from other people who've recommended those microphones, so it's not something I figured out on my own or anything. But I like those systems for the ambiances, and ORTF I like for something like a stream if I want to kind of target a specific sound. And then I like the Lohm Usi Pro little omnidirectional mics, because they're really easy to, or Clippies are another one that's similar. You can just hang them off of branches, and they're so small, they fit neatly. I think you're using the DPAs that are similar, right?
Yeah, DPAs 4060.
Yeah, those are nice. Yeah, they're nice because you can just hide them under things easily, right? Like, you don't have to build a big rain shield. You can just tuck it underneath a leaf or something. And
yeah, cool. Are there any equipment you're planning to get?
Oh, I always
want.
Yeah, I always want more stuff. So mostly I need to get some flight cases. That was something I've been experiencing because I've been doing more air travel. But yeah, I definitely am interested in a system that's better for targeting birds, because they're often further away from you. And yeah, I think you use a parabola too, right? Yeah, so I've been able to borrow those systems before, and I just don't have one myself. So I've been thinking about either, or maybe both, a shotgun and a parabola mic, so I have a better tool for bird recording. And I like that for just being able to catalog and document bird species. It's pretty fun to have the more targeted sound, I guess.
Yeah, we should definitely use them in the Istanbul forest recordings.
Yeah. Yeah, you use, I thought I remember talking to you about parabolas before, that you had used one or were thinking about it.
Yes, we have one. No, that's on our list this year, because I have this master's project on recording a birds library. We're going to get one. We're just looking at the options for now, but my project is due mid next year, so that's part of the plan. So we can actually get it together, maybe, just compare the options and review together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a must, I think. I mean, the amount of birds you've got without a parabolic is very impressive. I think here, especially, we have to have them because as you said earlier, the sounds of the external sound ambiances, the roads, having all those people, the crowded places, we have to eliminate them, especially in the north side of Istanbul, because you have all the planes, all the buzz of the nearby cities and everything, and there is roads everywhere, you know, the highways. So there is a, you know, continuous noise of that. So yeah, it's very exciting. It's on our plan.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell me more about the acoustic projects you do. So I think you still do it, right? For projects which need acoustic analysis, research, data analysis, you do that frequently.
Yeah, it's not my main source of work, but it's something that I love to do. So whenever there's a chance to be involved in a project, I like to do that. So I did quite a bit when I was a student, and then I'll be hopefully helping out with more bird surveys as those projects come up. So helping install the autonomous recorders, so like small recorders that fit in a waterproof casing that you can just leave out for long periods of time to collect acoustic data, and like the audio moths and song meters. And so I like being part of studies that use those tools. And then for Quiet Parks International, sometimes I'm a field technician for them. So if they're studying an area for to see if it qualifies as a quiet trail or quiet park, sometimes I participate in those studies. So I help go out and do the survey. And for that, we use a lot of ambient recording tools and also sound pressure level meters. And we may use some kind of autonomous recorders for that at some point, but I don't think they're currently being used. So I like doing studies to document, like noise intrusions, and also acoustic tools for collecting data about birds. I like that. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, great. And in doing that acoustic research, is there, how do I say, an additional competency that is required? I mean, apart from all the knowledge and studies, in terms of listening or, I don't know, analyzing, what do you do differently than field recording?
It's pretty similar, but there's a lot more. I guess to me, it definitely feels like data collection versus getting beautiful recordings that are useful commercially. So if I'm surveying an area for noise, then I want to record any noise that's happening because it's useful data. So I'll want to pick locations that are representative of the area instead of always trying to get away from the noise, or like, you know, how you're describing using a parabola to target a sound away from the ambient noise. Like for the data collection, if it's for a noise study, then I want to record all of that so I can study what's happening. And so in that way, it's different. And then I'm also paying a lot more attention to what the noise sources are. Like when I'm recording for commercial field recording, I'm just trying to kind of get away from those. So I'm paying attention to them, but I'm paying a lot more attention if it's for a survey. And then for bird collection, for data collection, it's kind of similar, just paying more attention to where birds might be spending their time and communicating. And I like to do that for commercial recording too, but I don't that's more for my own library production, because a lot of the times for commercial field recording projects, they want you to avoid birds. So it's like for rain or something. So if I'm just out collecting recordings because I want to have recordings of birds for my own use, then I'm paying attention to like which birds like which kinds of fruit and things like that. And if it's for data collection, it's similar. Like either you're just sort of collecting on a transect, so you're collecting acoustic data for a whole area, or sometimes you're trying to target to get a recording of a bird to document that it's present. So it feels a little different than like, yeah, somebody who wants like clean sounds of streams without lots of birds and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an interesting coincidence. Just yesterday, when we were having an internal editing techniques workshop in our company, in Vadi Sound, we had one sound which was like an opening of a garden door, and it's wooden, and it's a very beautiful sound, and it had like the littlest bird sounds in the background. So we discussed a lot if when we were editing that, we should keep those very subtle bird sounds, or we just have to get rid of them. And commercially, you need to get rid of them because it's a very unique sound of a wooden door, very, how do I say, grand opening of the door. And but those bird sounds are so cute in the background and so subtle. So we couldn't, let them go.
Yeah.
In the end, we made two versions. One with, subtle birds and one without. And then there was a lot of discussion on how much noise should be left in the base of the sound. And I don't know, it's even with experienced field recordists, these topics are always, there's no one right solution. So it depends a lot on how you hear and your preference of how the sound should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I get attached to those little bird sounds too. If I'm like, yeah, I'm like, oh, but I love the way that bird sounds in this part, but I really need it to not be there. So it's always sad to cut those out.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, so you have these commercial projects, you have your own library. Is there a collection of recordings that you never publish? I mean, I'm sure there are, tons of raw material and things you keep to yourself, but would you call them a library, a specific line of topics, etc.? Do you have any stealth projects?
Yeah, I'm sitting on a big mountain of raw recordings that I just sort of chip away at. So I have like, I guess it's not the most, I'm new to producing my own sound libraries. I've mostly just worked on other people's, but so usually it starts with me being excited about something that I've recorded, and then I think of how to make it a theme. And sometimes it's easy because it's just a location. So it's like this specific place, and I've collected this, palette of sounds from there. But yeah, I have like a few different kind of like smaller libraries that I'm starting to work through. So it just takes a long time to do that because I'm just working for myself. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably similar for your company, right? Like you have this whole like backlog of stuff that you've recorded that you'll pull from. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of ambiences, hours and hours of ambiences, because it's a shared passion in the team. So we're a team of 4 people now doing both field recording and sound design, and both the city ambiences, the urban ambiences and nature ambiences have been a passion. So we're doing kind of challenges among ourselves, like how much we're gonna record, when we go to vacations, just like you said. We just love doing a vacation together with a lot of ambience recording. So that I realize is a must for me now. So I went to Mount Ida for 5 days vacation last month, and every morning I woke up at from 5:30 to 7. We have different windows of different birds, and in the background there was the sea, the Aegean Sea, and every 15 minutes the wind changed, so the waves changed. So wow. I was like running from one place to the other just to not miss the sounds of the morning, because it's amazing. and you have a different group of birds. You know, it's like a theater stage. Like the birds, a specific bird enters, does his or her song, and then just goes out. Then there's a little group of new birds, and so that was really hectic. Not to miss any of those sounds. And I was running to the waves and then going up to where the trees are. And then every time there was a car passing, I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
And then there's that a hotel worker. Actually, it was a camp worker who liked sweeping the floors very early in the morning. And I'm like, hey, please don't do that. First, I recorded them.
Yeah.
And then I said, can you give me some sound, silence so that I can catch these birds? And he was like this crazy woman,
Yeah.
go running around at 5:36.
Yeah.
I usually don't even try to explain to most of the people because they either are not informed on the subject. So it's when I say it's a hobby, it's kind of okay with them. But some people even don't care. So it's like, if it was a visual, it was kind of more interesting for them,
Yeah.
a video recording or something. But I get a lot of question why when I say I'm just recording the sounds.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? And then like, okay, whatever, weirdo. And then they,
Exactly. Whatever.
yeah, sometimes people are like, oh, your camera, you're like taking photos. And I'm like, yeah, I'm taking photos. And then they move along and I'm like, whatever. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've called
Exactly.
it's to me it's like often it's basically birding, like what you're doing, chasing the birds around. So sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm just
Yeah.
birding, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Sometimes if people are really
Yeah.
curious, I give them the headphones too, like so they can listen, and then they're like, wow, I had no idea that. And it's pretty fun to
Yeah.
share that with people if they just come up on it and they've not been thinking about it at all, and then they listen. It's kind of a fun experience to have too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then I color it up a bit, saying, this is what the intelligence use as well, different countries, different, associations, Secret Service uses these techniques as well. So I say I can hear whatever is happening there, and then they get interested.
Yeah. You get kind of nervous, like, what exactly have you heard so far? Yeah.
Exactly. But then the kids are always interested.
Yeah.
The kids, especially I have a 10-year-old son, and he was like, amazed when he first listened through the headphones, and he immediately started recording, and
Wow.
then just immediately listening to the sounds, and then saying, oh, there was a cable, there was a, I don't know, a whoosh, and then he started recording again. So also on the streets, when I'm recording, kids get interested, and I give them the headphones like you do, and they get just, they find it magical that you can actually hear so much. So I think, being good at field recording kind of requires to keep that curiosity of a kid.
Yeah. What does your son like to record?
We kind of give him targets.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really mind whatever it is. It can be a door. He really liked the toys recording. So we just pulled out all his toys, like from Legos to Nerf guns to whatever uh, noisy little toys from his baby times mostly. And then he loved it, actually, pouring the Legos out of the box, putting them in again. And we made like, 50 different takes of that.
Yeah.
He really liked that.
Yeah,
There
and
was a time when Legos were big in our life.
yeah, and it's also funny because that's like the actual professional like method for sound designers is they're pouring Legos out in a studio somewhere, or like shooting Nerf guns at things and recording it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He also likes the kids' reactions part, like ows and ohs, and
yeah.
because he likes, exaggerating things naturally. And then I giggle him, and we do the organic laughs, and yeah, he likes interactive stuff. And just building on that kid stuff, so I also work voluntarily for a kids association here in Turkey. So we actually help with the education of the kids in villages, faraway villages, which have limited resources. And we give like workshops to the teachers in those primary schools, or we prepare, complementary material to them to give besides the academic schedule they have. And the idea is probably in spring, we will put a few of these field recording pilots, little workshops with the kids, like, 5 to 8 of them, just go on the around the village forest and stuff, and do some field recording with them, and maybe exchange those, we call it like the sonic postcards, maybe exchange them with kids in other places of the world.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember how much fun it was to have a pen pal as a kid, and that, having a sonic pen pal would be so fun.
Exactly. That's the idea.
Yeah.
And that really works well with our vision to actually help these kids discover that there is a lot more than just the big cities in Turkey, just going to Istanbul. So there's further beyond of what they can do. And actually, the idea is to preferably have them stay in their village, just contributing to their resources, both helping their families, their teachers, the municipality in that area. So it's amazing that if we can just embed little curiosity into these little fresh minds, it will
Yeah.
really be a wonderful experience, a wonderful sonic experience. And this sonic pen pals idea is actually inspired by there's a sound association in Belgium called iPhone. So they're actually working to contribute to sound all over the world, and it's supported by the Belgian government mostly. And our contact there asked for some sounds from Turkey just to add to one of their projects. And then we started like brainstorming on what they can do. I'm going to email you the name of the
Yeah.
organization. So
Yeah, I'd
they're
like to
doing a
read
lot
about
of
it.
sound studies. Yeah. And I think they were already exchanging sounds from Belgium to Canada. And people were, just gathering in the town hall or wherever, maybe in an open space with, proper speakers, listening to the sounds of, overseas, and just, talking about it and exchanging views. So what we thought is to have this for the kids in the villages in this geography, because it's going to mean so much to them, and it's
Yeah.
going to be such an experience, interesting experience, probably never done before in this geography. So that's the other part of it. If you want to join us there as well, you're most
Sure.
welcome.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also an open space experience also for us. We don't know the outcome. where it's going to take us, it's going to be full of surprises. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I love that. Just giving kids tools to experience those things that they might not have or have access to otherwise. Like, I worked with on one of the acoustic surveys I did last year was using autonomous recorders to study birds in outside of Forks in Washington State, where there's different kinds of managed forest. So for logging resources, and so they're studying like, well, if we cut the trees this way, how does it affect the birds, basically? And they took volunteer groups from different places to come and help do the surveys, so they could learn about ecology, basically. And one of the groups were high school students from New York City, and they had never, I think maybe one of the kids had hiked before, but otherwise they had never been in wilderness. And so watching their reaction to that was amazing. Like, I think one of the main comments was, it doesn't smell here, or like, the water is blue. And just like them experiencing being far enough from a city that you don't, I mean, we were in managed forest, so everything's very, handled by humans, but for them to see forests and rivers and coastline that isn't polluted or as visibly polluted was pretty amazing. And it was really fun to watch them experience that. And
yeah.
They loved the when they had to help set up their recorders, and then later we would go back and have them listen through some of the recordings that had been collected and try to identify the birds. And that was really fun too, for them to get to hear the results of the work, basically.
Yeah, it's great. And Laura, do you have a specific recording which you're particularly proud of, or something very special close to your heart?
There was one moment in the desert in California this spring where I ended up staying longer than I had planned, so it was sort of unexpected. And then there also was a thunderstorm that came through, and that was pretty rare for that part of the world. And so
Sorry, what was it that came through? I missed that.
A thunderstorm. And and I was in a palm oasis in the desert when it came through, and so I got to hear the thunder approaching, and then the rain and the palm fronds, and then the palm fronds in the wind. And that was something I'll never forget. It was a pretty rare experience for me.
I think I listened to an excerpt of that, and on SoundCloud, I think that's the one you put. That was really impressive.
Oh, thanks. It might have been the Ecuador thunderstorm, but maybe I put up one from the desert. I don't remember. So yeah, thunderstorms are pretty fun.
Yeah. I think there was a field recordist going, particularly after thunderstorms, just following where they are. I can't remember the name right now, but it was like a personal passion of. It was a guy, I think.
Like a storm chasing field recordist.
Yeah. Exactly. That was the idea. It's amazing. So my favorite field recording was actually an aha moment for me. It was in the very crowded part of Istanbul, and it was for a project. It was a requirement for a project, and I actually hated that part of the city because it's full of tourists from everywhere. You have the food stands where they ring bells and they shout all the time, and then there's kids everywhere, and it's always too warm because it's like a closed circle. So it's an area where you would avoid as a tourist as well. Actually, it's just it's a mass place, and I had to go there and do like 3-4 hours of recording on a Sunday. So I went there so unwillingly, and I first took the mosque sounds, which I love all the time. That was the nice part. I went into the mosque. There was the prayer and everything. And then I went to this closed circle, as I said, where the chaos was. And after like half an hour, I think I went into a trance state, because
Wow.
there was so many sources of sound, but all of them, sometimes there's a harmony of the moment, so it's not always there, or maybe it's just me connecting with whatever is happening around me. But it was so like an orchestra. So I heard the bells of the waffle people, waffle guys just um, inviting the tourists to have a waffle. And then there was the potato, whatever guys, we call it kumpir in Turkish, the potato with all the toppings. And people walking by, and I was totally invisible. Nobody saw me. Nobody changed their way to, walk away or towards me. So in the middle of all that chaos, I just loved it. And for the first time, the city noise actually became um, something nice, something that spoke to me. And I was in tune with my environment, totally in tune with my environment, and I was actually enjoying the noise. So to date, still, that's my favorite recording. It's a surprise, but it's my favorite recording.
Yeah. Did you have were your microphones visible where you were standing, or like kind of in a bag or something?
No, they were visible,
Wow.
but they were in a zeppelin, so nobody, they just first look and then look away, so that it's not colorful or very interesting for them.
Do you ever go back there now just
Uh,
to listen to the space?
yeah, I do. And unfortunately, those recordings, the client took all of them for the project, and they just loved it. It always shows, doesn't it? That if you're impressed with the work you do, they're gonna love it. So there's none left for me, so I'll need to do that again. But it
Yeah.
was such a special experience, so I'm kind of concerned if maybe the next experience is not going to be that nice.
Yeah, maybe it won't feel as fresh, but maybe it will if the sounds are a little different the next time you'll hear something new. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. After a while, I can go record again. So there, if you're looking for urban chaos, we have it all. I think
Yeah.
now the unofficial population of the city is 20 million.
Wow.
So it's like a proper country-sized
Yeah.
environment. I would say it's like an experiment, like all over the city.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. So that was my, I would say, maybe not proud, but the most special recording to date.
Yeah, that
So
made me
my, yeah.
I was just gonna say that it will inspire me to try this in New York City because I've been there quite a bit the last couple of years, and for me, yeah, usually I'm like I just want to go away from the chaos, but I wonder if it would be an experience like what you described, where you just sort of like, yeah, get into a trance state and experience all the sounds and.
Yeah. And I also love recording in metro, in the tube, everywhere I go. And just trying to find the subtle sounds of the trains everywhere in the world. So I think that's going to be one of my personal passions moving forward. And I just love the sound of the wheels on the what do you call it? The tracks.
Tracks, yeah.
And the steel tracks, and how it rises and goes down, and you can actually make great monster sounds out of that.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I have those for myself, like the subtle um, sounds of the train and metro. And from London, from Paris, from Istanbul. Probably I'll make it a long series going,
Yeah.
traveling around.
That seems like a nice one. Yeah, where if you are curating the sounds that are most interesting to you, I bet that'll come out as a really unique collection too.
Yeah. I don't take the stop I should get by, and I just find myself going forever with that train, and
Yeah.
until I'm satisfied with my sounds. And I also love, I mean, there's a story behind that, because it's a closed environment. There's the people looking at you, finding it very awkward most of the
Yeah.
time. And then after a while, they don't care at all. I'm just sitting next to that person or just across, and they go back to their phones. And I'm just watching everyone, I have all the time. So it's also a great people watching experience,
Yeah.
because I can't watch the rails anyway. It's in the dark. So I just listen and do people watching. That's another favorite of mine, for sure.
Yeah, they kind of goes together well for those kind of spaces like and like the market area that you're describing too. Probably really good people watching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're running out of time a bit, but I really enjoy having this conversation. So if there is anything else you want to add from your adventures, I'm happy to hear before we close.
Um, oh, you had mentioned ideas for people who are interested in
Yes.
trying recording. Yeah, I think we've both talked about that a bit just from our experiences with recording. And then on your end, you have a lot more of the sound design background too. So like thinking about how a trained sound may transform into something like that. I don't have much experience with that kind of thought process, but I think it definitely plays into like when you're thinking of recording, those are all things to consider. Like how do you want to use the sound, or are you just experiencing what's happening and kind of opportunistically recording it? And yeah, I think that the approach for me that's been the most gratifying is to just try to make my chances of being in a place as good as I can, and then just be there and be happy to record whatever I can. And if it's for work and I'm on a timeline, then I push myself a lot more. But I think if you're able to just get whatever equipment you can and try it, that I always think that is really fun for people. Like you don't necessarily need to have the best equipment or even own it yourself, but just borrowing stuff and getting out and trying it seems to be pretty inspiring for a lot of people. Even just like whatever, I feel like sometimes it's people feel like they can't do it because they don't have the right equipment. But I think if you're just doing it to learn and experience and train, just having something that you can listen with is always educational. And even if you don't get like a pristine recording at that moment, you might experience something you've never heard before, and that can lead to new learning experiences. And so
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, everyone should start somewhere as soon as possible, I think, before thinking too much and just waiting for the right moment or the right equipment.
yeah.
Cool. Laura, it's been a great chat. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, me too. Asli, thanks for inviting me and for thinking of me with this project. It's nice to hear more about your perspective on recording too. So thanks for that.
Thank you. And then we're expecting you here in
Yeah.
Turkey anytime.
Okay.
So it's a all year round invitation. So whenever you can, we're
Thank
happy to have you.
Yeah, I look forward to recording birds with you there sometime. That'll be fun.
Great. Let's do that. All right then. See you soon.
Yeah, take care. Thanks so much.